Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. Thanks for joining us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. After reviewing 96 publications made over 25 years, that's between 1991 and 2016, the Celiac Disease Foundation concluded that a little over 1 in 100 people has celiac disease. This comes to about 1.4% of the global population, although it is higher in some climes and lower in some. Celiac disease is a serious autoimmune condition where the ingestion of a protein called gluten leads to damage in the small intestines. People with a first-degree relative with celiac disease, like a parent, child, or sibling, have a 1 in 10 risk of developing celiac disease. It occurs more in women than men and more in children than adults. My guest is a nutrition consultant at Rencare Integrated Limited in Lagos. That's Dr. Femi Ladende. You are welcome to the program, sir. It's been a while.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Why do they say it's autoimmune when something is causing it? We thought autoimmune means of itself by itself,
No, not to me. Autoimmune means that your body's immune system is automatically attacking itself.
Okay.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's a contradiction in terms. The body will not attack itself without cause or without reason.
Or without invasion?
Or without invasion. What we need to find out is what is generating it. The commonest one that people tend to look at is when they say you have rheumatoid arthritis, for example.
Okay, yes, that's an
autoimmune
disease.
And they say that's an autoimmune disease. But in 85 out of 90 of those rheumatoid arthritis diseases, you have a preceding viral infection.
Oh, okay, that is right.
Yes, when the body has a viral invasion, the tendency is to go after it and kill it off. Once it's killed off, you see, a virus is simply a protein coat that has a DNA component inside it, or an RNA component inside it. Now, even if the virus is dead, but a little bit of the viral coat is left behind, the body sees that as non-self and will go after it. Regardless of where that viral coat is sequestered, if it happens to be in your joints, your body will keep going after that joint until it gets rid of that viral coat.
So that's where the rheumatoid arthritis comes in. Now, I know that gluten it's a very famous word these days. We didn't used to know about gluten. So gluten is in wheat and by extension bread. Are there other things we take here that have gluten?
There are other seeds that contain gluten, not many of them with as high a content as you have in wheat. And unfortunately, the wheat is becoming a bigger culprit here because we have so commonly modified the wheat, as it were. The wheat that we're eating these days is not the wheat that was being eaten 200-300 years ago.
Because it's been refined.
There's been too many things done to it. And we have tended to increase the gliadin content. Gliadin is the major protein that constitutes gluten.
Okay.
And when you do that, you're looking for trouble. Because your body is created to renew, repair, replace, and to protect itself. And if it has anything that begins to create a muckabout with its sense of balance, then it goes after it.
Okay, so it says damage is caused to the small intestines by reason of the ingestion of this gluten in some people. What does this damage look like?
How can I explain
And
this?
can it be reversed?
Let's look at it this way. Your small intestine is only a very small part of your digestive tract. Where the entire digestive system is about 11.4 meters long, depending on the individual.
I have 11.4 meters of something.
Yes, it's all coiled up. It's all coiled up and all tied up. And the small intestine will be simply about a third of that.
Okay.
Now, the small intestine is supposed to start from your duodenum until it gets to the ileocecal junction.
Just before the big intestine
Yeah,
starts.
the point at which it joins the big intestine.
Okay.
Now, what happens in that section? Your digestion, that is the breakdown of food, is completed. Your absorption is completed. Now, if you look at the small intestine and you think that you have a surface area about the size of 3 to 4 lawn tennis courts.
If it's spread out.
Yes, when you spread it out. That's about the size of the surface area you're looking at. Now, this surface area is like a very thin parchment. If you think about the sieve that we use to do our iluba or something like that, and then increase that 1 billion times.
It's that small.
It's that small. So your food is supposed to have been digested to its smallest particles. And the particles then just diffuse through that tiny hole into the bloodstream.
So what happens when this person is gluten sensitive and has ingested gluten?
What happens is that, you see, just on the inside of that very thin parchment barrier that separates your outside from your inside, because your intestine is actually part of your outside that has been folded inside. So that is your first contact with the outside.
Okay, because
now
when
on
you
the
ingest
on the inside of that, you have your immune system standing guard, just like the immigration officers. Mm-hmm. And anything that passes through that barrier that is not supposed to be there, then gets a whacking. It's like you have a SWAT team standing there ready to do battle. And if you have holes too large in that barrier and big things that have not been totally broken down pass through, the body sees them as non-self and goes after them.
So the attack starts.
And what is brilliant about the human body, and it keeps amazing me each time I think about it, is the fact that your body also learns. The minute it sees something like gluten or the gliadin or the other protein that causes a huge amount of brouhaha for the intestine, is the milk protein casein.
Oh, yes.
Right? Once it sees either one of those, it not only begins battle immediately, what it also does is that it files away in its memory banks what these things look like. And next time they appear, even if they appear in very minuscule amounts, the war starts all over again.
Oh, so what I'm hearing from you is that the first thing a person with this sensitivity must do is stop taking those types of food. Oh, yes.
I mean, there's no point continuing to aggravate the situation. Even if you take...
So they can't say, okay, let me just have a bite of bread. I'm not going to take the whole slice.
No, I would not advise it. It is like somebody who you say has an allergy to nuts, and you give them even a tiny bit of nut, you could generate an anaphylactic reaction that kills them instantly.
Yet, there are publications that say that lots of people go through life with this disease and they don't know. What are the symptoms?
The symptoms are so amorphous and widespread. You have the bloating, you have the gas, you have the diarrhea interfacing with constipation, you have brain fog, you have even multiple sclerosis.
So in other words, you could be seeing the symptoms of this disease and not know what you're looking at.
That is correct. But where I say we need to be a little bit smarter rather than rigid is that you need to listen to what the body is saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so doctors, how do we listen now?
As doctors, we're trained to go after the symptoms. Because the symptoms could be here, there, and yonder, you may be looking for the wrong thing. Or you may be looking at a particular symptom and tying it to a different disease. For example, one of the far-flung results of celiac disease and some of the other autoimmune conditions is an osteoporosis, a thinning of the bones.
Okay. And then if the person happens to be getting on in years, the person would say, oh, well, it's one of those things that was bound to happen anyway.
And we then ignore, you see, medicine has not taught us as doctors to go searching for the root causes. What we need to do is look for the root cause. And where you're looking for the root causes, look, there is something
so
called an elimination.
So if somebody comes to you and says, for example, I'm having pain in my joints, as a doctor going to the root cause, you wouldn't just do an x-ray and say, okay, you have osteoporosis, osteopenia, and you know it's because you're getting older, you're getting close to menopause. What would you do? Would you take a blood test or would you do a biopsy?
I would not even do a biopsy. Whatever you need, whatever needs to have an invasion of the body space, I keep only to be done as a no other option.
Okay.
You
so
have
no
32,
invasion until it's
no.
absolutely necessary.
Yes. Your body has 32 trillion cells from your head to your foot, right? There's only one thing that touches every single cell that you have, and that's your blood. So if there's any signal going to come through, the one place to find it is in the blood.
It's in blood.
Unfortunately, we have not expanded on the art of analyzing what the blood is actually saying.
Okay.
As doctors, we tend to cherry pick which blood tests we do because we have this diagnosis already in our heads. You talk to a patient, you do a history, you say it's likely to be this.
Okay.
So when you do a blood test, you then do a blood test that points in the direction of what you suspect.
Aha, but not an open-minded blood test.
No. So that is why I never do blood tests like that. I do what I call a complete profile blood test. That will tell me everything and anything I need to know. I then analyze the results of those blood tests to look at what your body is telling me.
Okay.
Because there will be symptoms and signs from other areas. You see, the body has 22.
But what is the definitive test, though, of somebody who has celiac disease?
You will need to put, for me, you will need to put a camera in there and take a look at the lining itself.
Okay. So the lining, we're getting somewhere now. The lining of the duodenum is what you're talking about?
No, of the small intestine.
Small intestines.
Yeah, the small intestine is just after the duodenum.
Okay. And it's going to show you a picture of what it would look like if the disease is there, right?
Oh, of course it will.
All right. So let's take a break. When we come back, we continue. Stay with us. We're taking a short break. Welcome back. You can call 0808 054 2233 for questions on celiac disease. You can also tweet at CTV_Mary A. We were talking about what the small intestines would look like in somebody who's gluten sensitive when you do the test of passing a tube into the small intestine. So what would the small intestines look like?
Right. You remember I said it looks about the size of 3 to 4 lawn tennis courts?
Yeah.
Now, what gives it that massive surface area is the fact that the lining of the small intestine is thrown into folds called villi.
And those are the things that absorb?
Yes. They're like fingers. And if you take one single finger, that finger is the villus. The skin is on the outside. There is a blood vessel going up that finger and down on the other side. That is a blood vessel. So the food particles that are being absorbed pass directly into the bloodstream.
Okay.
Except if they are fats or fatty acids. If they're fats or fatty acids, they then enter into the center of that finger and do not go directly to the liver through the hepatic portal system. They pass through the lymphatic drainage and spread all over the body first.
Okay.
Now, that finger-like projection also on its own has its own finger-like projection, so it's like microvilli. Now that's what spread the surface area. Now when you take a look inside, you will see the folds of the villi and the macrovilli. In a patient that has celiac disease, those fingers have been denuded. The surface looks flat.
Okay.
You can see some bumps.
So the microvilli have gone to sleep, so to speak.
They've been destroyed.
Destroyed?
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about this destruction. Does it mean the person can't absorb his food anymore?
That is one of the major reasons that you get symptoms in celiac disease.
Aha, okay.
Because they're now deficient in B vitamins, they're deficient in D, they're deficient in a whole range of things.
But this
because
is
they can no
more
longer
common in
absorb the
children.
nutrients.
How old can someone be to develop this kind of disease?
Oh, you can
Really,
have
really
it.
small.
You can have it as young as 6 months to a year and a half.
Okay, so here's what I'm trying to work through now. A 6-month-old child has celiac disease. How does his mother know? How does his father know?
The child
And then
has
his villi are being destroyed.
The child has a swollen abdomen, right? The child has very foul-smelling stools. You see, those are indicative signals that point you in the right direction. And that means you need to look at what you're feeding that child. Because
could it affect his cognitive, his growth, his brain development, since he's not absorbing the nutrients?
They don't grow as well.
They don't grow?
No. Failure to thrive is actually one of the signal hallmarks of celiac disease.
Okay, okay. Wow. And so...
And when you're not absorbing, it's amazing. Because
are there
a lot of
diseases that mimic celiac disease? Could there be something else wrong?
Celiac disease is one of many autoimmune diseases. They all carry similar hallmarks. That is the problem that makes it so difficult to identify until you have actually gone inside the intestine and taken a look at what the thing looks like. But having said that, what I would want to err on the side of caution with is to think about what the problem being created is generating in the whole person, not in an organ system. The tendency is that we look at the intestine and we see that is where the problem is. But
can we take this call from Philip first, calling from Abuja? Hello, Philip. Are you there, Philip? Okay, Philip seems to have gone off. You could try again. So let's continue with that. You look at the whole system, not just an organ. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, because the people who have sufferings would have other areas in trouble as well. If, for example, you are not absorbing your B12 properly, you could have anemia.
Okay.
And
so you don't just look at it as anemia.
No.
You have to go deeper.
You need to know why that anemia is there. And if you're not absorbing your B12, it's not only your small intestine, it could be your stomach. Okay. Because if you don't have enough acid in your stomach to instigate what we call the intrinsic factor, then you cannot absorb your B12. And if you're not absorbing your vitamin Ds and you're not absorbing those things, your bones will suffer.
Yet we have a lot of gluten, this gluten in foods that are preserved, for example. People have starch, stabilizers, and all sorts of things in canned food. So how would you educate somebody with celiac disease? You've already said, don't take any gluten, but how does he differentiate between what has gluten and what does not have? Because it's not so obvious anymore.
The foods are... Let's pick up the one major one that everybody knows about.
Bread.
And you know what we do in this part of the world? We eat bread, we eat rolled wheat, we pound the wheat, we roll the wheat
Yes. We take it with soup.
with everything. And for the body is becoming a war of attrition.
But that is for the person with celiac disease, right? Not for everybody.
For me, for everybody, we should run a mile from wheat.
Okay. You heard it from the doctor, run a mile from wheat. Okay, so is that the only management for celiac disease? Just stay off gluten? Are there other things that can be done?
No, just staying away from gluten, you may not be absolutely sure of whether or not you're beating the same, because there are times when they talk about non-responsive celiac disease. That is, you have removed the gluten.
We're getting a call from Adamawa State. Let's quickly take that before we continue. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Awal. What's your question?
Yeah, my question is I want to know what is celiac disease.
Thank you. That's really basic. We'll handle that. He just wants to know what is celiac disease.
Celiac disease is an autoimmune condition. When we say autoimmune, it's a condition in which your body's immune system is attacking itself. And it's a condition in which the lining of the small intestine, part of your entire intestinal duct, is damaged so badly that you cannot absorb nutrients that is coming through in the food that you're eating.
So you can be malnourished.
You definitely will be malnourished.
And just as an example, we're talking about bread. Yeah. Bread has gluten. So if you have celiac disease, you've got to stay off bread.
Completely. You've got to stay off anything that is made with wheat, whether it's bread or biscuits or cakes or whatever it is.
Well, that's true. Donuts, pizzas.
Off the table. Off the table.
Oh, I'm so sorry, celiac disease people.
Off the table. Because if you continue, what you're creating is a war of attrition, and a non-ending war.
There was this time we had a lot of talk about making bread from corn flour. So that now becomes quite salient, right? Corn doesn't have gluten,
it is salient, but I will sound a note of warning here. Virtually all the grains that we try to eat have things in it that means we shouldn't be eating them.
Okay. We have a call from Samuel. I'm sorry to cut you short, but we have to take the callers. Hello, Samuel.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your question?
My question is, I want you to share more light on the celiac disease.
Okay, so that's what we're doing. Thank you very much, Samuel. You were talking about some greens.
Grains. Look, we eat a lot of grains, right? There is rice, there is beans, there is corn.
Grains.
Grains. G-R-A-I-N.
Yeah. I thought you meant greens.
No, grains.
Okay, grains. Okay,
And
rice, corn.
Please take this for a fact. The grain is the future of the plant. Rice, for example, is the seed from which the next generation of the grass that we get the rice from is going to grow.
Okay.
Now, the plant protects itself. It puts certain things called anti-nutrients in the grain to stop people from eating it. And those are the poisons that we are getting.
Okay.
If a grain is, I mean, we're talking about gluten today, but there are things in a whole range of other grains that we're eating that are called lectins.
Okay, so we can't go into lectins now, but what I'm hearing from you is be careful with grains.
You've got to be careful
watch your
with
body.
grains.
So if there's any bloating, don't
find out why.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Doctor. I know you can't believe the time is up, but it is up. And thank you for being with us. Thank you for your calls, Awal and Samuel. Have a wonderful day. I am Mary Alale Yusuf.